Late-stage cancer. Not much time left to live. My final wish before I die is to never love this man again if there's a next life. I thought he'd be fine when I'm gone, but I never saw him actually decide to end his life and join me. Tick, tock, thud, it's midnight. Mia stared blankly at the slowly melting sky blue cake on the table. The only candle on the cake had burnt out. Her 25th birthday quietly came to a close. She walked over, eyed the forgotten cake, scooped a piece with her index finger, and popped it into her mouth. "Happy birthday," she whispered to herself. Then, without thinking twice, she tossed the whole cake into the trash can. At 1:30 a.m., he came back. Mia smiled as she watched the man walk through the door, his back turned. Noah's indifferent gaze landed on the woman on the couch, smelling like booze, and his brows knitted in annoyance. "Can you do something serious instead of drinking?" Mia shook the wineglass in her hand and chuckled lightly. "Drinking is serious business." She got up from the couch, swaying slightly, and walked toward him. "Alcohol is a good thing. Come on, have a sip." She brought the glass to his lips, eyes blurry. "Come on, taste it." The man squinted, pushing her hand away. "You should go to sleep." Mia stumbled for a second, almost falling and spilling most of the wine. With that push, she snapped a bit more sober. She set the glass on the table, ran her hand through her hair, and looked at him with a faint smile. "Today is my birthday." Hearing those words, Noah's gaze flickered briefly before settling back. "Since it's your birthday, there should be a gift." She sighed softly. "If you're not giving me one, let me give you one." Saying that, she pulled a document from the drawer next to the couch and handed it to him. "This is my gift to you." The man's eyes landed on the cover. A divorce agreement. His brows furrowed as he muttered, "What game are you playing now? My father tied you to me for so many years with his schemes. It's been unfair to you. Weren't you always thinking about your first love? Go find her." She shoved the divorce agreement into his hand, and before he could react, she tiptoed and kissed his lips abruptly. Seconds later, he forcefully shoved her away. This time, Mia really felt the dull pain as her body hit the floor. Noah didn't expect her to fall. She looked pretty weak. His brows slightly furrowed, but he didn't help her up. Mia endured the throbbing pain in her arm and narrowed her eyes. "As a married couple, we've hit rock bottom. It's a total failure. Looks like we really aren't meant to be together for life." Noah's voice stayed cold. "If you thought that way back then, we wouldn't have tangled up until now. It's my fault." Mia forced a smile, her mouth twitching. "This guilt can only be atoned with death." Noah's lips curled into a cold smirk. "Are you willing to die?" Mia's long lashes trembled, her voice a bit lower. "If I die, in the next life, I'll never love you again." "Let's see when you're dead." Noah turned away and left. The door slammed shut as he walked out again. Mia's lips relaxed slightly. She held her throbbing left arm and stood up. He still despised her so much. She smiled bitterly. Sitting on the couch, Mia pulled out another document from the drawer, a medical report. Late-stage cancer, a suffocating phrase written on the last page. She closed her eyes, opened them after a bit, and tore the report apart. The paper shreds scattered on the floor. Mia looked at the wedding ring on her finger, gently rubbing it with her fingertip. Slowly, she took off the ring and placed it on the table. The next morning, Mia packed all her stuff and threw it into the car. Without even eating breakfast, she drove away from the villa. She kept driving, leaving the city behind and heading onto the coastal highway. She opened the car window, letting the chilly wind hit her face. Mia squinted, staring straight at the sun. "Never again, Noah." She turned the wheel to the right, loosened her grip, and floored the accelerator. Bang! The car smashed into the steep cliff on the right at high speed. The front was a wreck, and fresh red blood flowed from under the seat. Noah's company, on the 60th floor. Secretary Gill arrived early, prepping for the meeting. At exactly 9 o'clock, the CEO returned to his office on time, and Jill, as usual, brought in a cup of strong coffee. "Sir, the video conference with Weiss starts at 9:30. The meeting documents are on your desk." Noah pinched his brow and nodded faintly. Jill, always sharp, noticed something missing on the CEO's finger. The wedding ring. It was gone. leaving just a faint red mark. Gil was a bit surprised. Although the CEO never held his wife in high regard, he never took off his ring. Why today? Seeing her hesitation, Noah glanced at her. Is there something else? No. Jill nodded slightly and turned to leave. Around noon, when Mia had been delivering lunch faithfully for the past 5 years, she didn't show up today. Jill seemed to get the hint and quickly ordered takeout for the CEO. 30 minutes later, the takeout arrived and Jill brought it into the office. President Smith, let's have lunch first, Jill said, placing the takeout on the desk and leaving. Noah finished his work and it was already 10 minutes later. He opened the lunchbox and took a bite, his brows furrowing slightly. The meal tasted different from his usual. After a few more bites, he set it aside. His phone vibrated on the table, but he kept his eyes on the files. He picked up the phone without looking and answered. Noah, are you done with work? Hearing the familiar voice, Noah glanced at the screen, a slight smile forming. Almost. Let's have dinner together tonight. Noah looked at the documents and replied softly. Okay. The other person hung up, sounding happy. Noah sped up, finished reading the file, confirmed he was done for the day, and left the company. Huaxia International Hotel. Noah's car pulled up from afar, and Sophie adjusted her dress, smiling as she waited for him to get out. Noah. Noah handed the car keys to the doorman and walked toward her. Have you been here long? Sophie linked her arm with his and whispered, No, I just arrived. There was a brief stiffness in Noah's arm, but he quickly relaxed. The two entered the French restaurant on the third floor of Huaxia International Hotel. With a gentlemanly gesture, Noah pulled out a chair for Sophie and ordered several dishes she liked. Sophie seemed in a good mood, a smile lingering on her lips. That morning, she had contacted a staff member at Noah's house who informed her that Noah and Mia had a huge fight in the early hours. Noah had left the villa in his car while Mia had packed her bags and left early in the morning. Mia's family had fallen apart, and Noah, who had gone from a struggling young man to a successful business tycoon, was no longer tied to Mia. Exquisite dishes were served one by one, and Sophie kept her poise, occasionally picking some food for him. Noah looked at her intently and asked with concern, Are you feeling better? Sophie gracefully cut into her steak and softly replied, Much better. Just some stomach pain. It's an old issue. As long as you eat on time, it won't bother you. I remember when we were studying, you didn't have any stomach problems. Sophie paused for a moment, smiling as she met his gaze. Back then, you took such good care of me. How could I get sick? Noah's gaze softened. He didn't take care of you? Sophie set down her knife and fork, her brows slightly furrowing. Mia took 5 years of your life, and I reluctantly spent 5 years with someone else. But we both know you can't force feelings. We deeply love each other, and if it weren't for Mia's interference, we could have been together 5 years ago. Noah seemed to recall the tough times from 5 years back. His face darkened. I'm sorry. Sophie stood up and walked to his side, bending down. No, you're not at fault. It was Mia and her father who forced us with their power. At that time, we had no authority or influence to resist. She looked into his eyes, her gaze finally landing on his thin lips, slowly pressing down. In an instant, a familiar and annoying voice echoed in Noah's mind. Noah, after we got married, you can't do anything that would hurt me, like hugging, kissing, or anything with other girls. Do you understand? Almost instinctively, Noah turned his head, avoiding her kiss. Sophie's face froze. She bit her lip, standing upright with a sense of disappointment. I've offended you, forgetting that you're a married man. We're divorced. As he said those words, Noah unconsciously touched a spot on his left ring finger. The ring he'd worn for 5 years was gone, but the imprint remained. Sophie's heart filled with joy, but her face pretended to be shocked. Really, you're divorced? Noah stood up, pulling her back to her original position, whispering, Yes, we're divorced. Sophie placed her hands on his, her smile radiant. That's great, Noah. You don't have to force yourself to stay by her side anymore. She held his hand tightly. This is a good thing. We should celebrate. Noah shrugged. It's not a big deal. No need to celebrate. Of course we should celebrate, Sophie said playfully. I've been waiting for this day for 5 years, Noah. Let's celebrate together, even if it's just me. Seeing her bright smile, Noah didn't want to let her down, so he went along. On the 8th floor of Huaxia International Hotel, there was a fancy nightclub. The city's young hotshots loved coming here to unwind. After dinner, Sophie took Noah to the 8th floor. She had planned to invite Noah's other friends, but they were all already there drinking. Sophie got excited and led Noah straight to their private room. Deafening music blasted from the room. Sophie almost clung to Noah, her hands gripping his arm tightly, like claiming her territory. The friends cheered, constantly refilling and emptying their glasses. Eventually, Noah got so drunk he couldn't stand straight. Dizzy, he glanced at his watch and mumbled, "It's midnight. I gotta go home." That woman, Mia, wouldn't let me stay out late. Always nagging, so annoying. Sophie had been by his side all along and naturally heard his muttering. Her face darkened a bit, her hands wrapped around his slender waist. "Noah, you're divorced now. No one's gonna hold you back anymore, so you don't need to stick to any rules about not drinking or coming home early." "Divorced?" Noah closed his eyes and smiled. "Yeah, we're divorced. Unsteadily, he took a drink handed to him by someone else and gulped it down. A few drops slid down his mouth and throat. Sophie watched this captivating man, biting her lip. Okay. I'll block the drinks offered to him. Let's stop here tonight. Noah's drunk. I'll take him to rest." Sophie struggled to support Noah, shaking her head with a smile. "No need. You guys continue. I can handle it myself." After saying that, she supported Noah and slowly walked out of the private room. Noah followed Sophie out without saying a word, and they took the elevator to the 60th floor. "Come on, Noah. Be careful." Sophie helped Noah to one of the room doors and pulled out the prepared room key to open it. "Come in first." The two entered the room, and Sophie helped him lie down on the bed. Just as she was about to take off his coat, Noah suddenly sat up, pushed her away, and his deep gaze showed little emotion. Sophie paused for a moment and tentatively asked, "What's wrong?" "I'll book another room." Noah stood up, his groggy head swaying a few times, almost losing balance. Noah stumbled to the door and bumped into the hotel manager walking down the corridor. After the manager opened a room for him, he walked into the new room alone and casually closed the door. Sophie's misty eyes turned cold, showing resentment. They were already divorced, yet he was still stuck with that woman. The next day, Sophie brushed off her disappointment, put on a perfect smile, and energetically held Noah's arm as they took the elevator down from the 60th floor. In the hotel lobby, they met a familiar face. The grand lobby was busy with people. Sophie held on to Noah, smiling as she looked at someone not far away. The lobby manager was Ava, Mia's childhood friend. She was dressed in a black professional suit, standing there with a cold gaze fixed on the embracing couple. Staff members occasionally greeted Eva, and she just nodded slightly. Noah looked at the woman and subconsciously wanted to retract his arm, but then remembered he was already divorced from Mia, so he didn't move. Eva's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Mr. Smith seems to have quite the good fortune. One at home and several outside, enjoying it to the fullest. But sometimes having too much good fortune can be overwhelming. I wonder if Mr. Smith is feeling a bit swamped." Noah's gaze darkened slightly, but he stayed silent. Sophie restrained her smile, took a step forward, and stood protectively in front of Noah. "The affairs between the three of us are none of your business. 5 years ago, it was Mia who used her family's power to force Noah to marry her. If it weren't for her persistent pursuit, Noah and I wouldn't have been apart for so long. If it weren't for her stubbornness, Noah wouldn't have been slandered by the people in City A, and he wouldn't have to bear such an undeserved reputation." Eva provocatively looked at Noah. "Undeserved reputation? What are you talking about? Living off women, depending on women, or being heartless?" "Shut up!" Sophie glared at her angrily. "I know best what kind of person Noah is, and I won't let you defame him like this." "You won't allow? By what authority? The other woman?" Eva mocked. Sophie said, "Noah and I knew each other first. Mia was the third party who came between us." "Is that so?" Eva sneered. "I remember it was you who dumped Noah for a wealthy second generation and left him." Sophie glanced at Noah guiltily and hurriedly explained. If it wasn't for Mia getting in between us, there's no way I would have left him. The order seemed reversed. Eva taunted. Even a dog would wag its tail after 5 years, let alone Mia, who loved Noah with all her heart and soul, only to be ignored by him in the end. Eva's gaze didn't linger on Sophie. She just stared mockingly at Noah. I hope you really haven't fallen for her, because once you realize what you've lost, you'll understand true regret. Every time Ava thought of the lifeless body she saw in the hospital, she wished she could tear apart the two people in front of her with her own hands. The person who used to be so bright and kind ended up like this, and she couldn't stop hating. Noah met her gaze with indifference and spoke coldly. I don't love her. Ava sneered. I hope you remember what you said today and never regret it for the rest of your life. With that, Eva walked away coldly, leaving behind her words. Stop. Sophie turned to call her back. Eva couldn't be bothered and walked away nonchalantly. Eva, forget it. Sophie wanted to say more, but Noah interrupted in a low voice. Let's go. Noah first took Sophie back to her apartment before driving back to the office. Once back, Noah resumed his busy routine as usual. The hangover from the previous night gave him a slight headache. After the meeting, he took a short break and had his secretary bring him a cup of strong coffee. While waiting for the coffee, he took out his personal phone that had been silent all night and scrolled through it. Besides the message from Sophie, there was nothing else. Sophie had invited him to dinner that evening. Noah thought for a moment and replied with a message saying he had something else to do and suggested they reschedule. After sending the message, he went through all the information and missed calls on his phone, but didn't see that familiar series of numbers. For some reason, he felt a strange sense of disappointment. He lowered his gaze, pondering silently for a moment, when Jill walked in with the coffee. Mr. Smith, here's your coffee. Noah took one last look at his phone, then looked up at Gil, feigning indifference. Has Mia called? Gil was momentarily taken aback, then replied, No, she hasn't. Noah lowered his gaze again, saying nothing. The fact that the CEO would actively ask about Mia today made Jill extremely curious. After finishing the hot coffee, Noah set down his phone and immersed himself in another round of work. At noon, Jill arranged a boxed lunch for him. Noah took a few bites, his eyebrows furrowing once more. Where was this boxed lunch ordered from? Washing Hotel. Jill thought for a moment, hesitantly asking, Is it that the food doesn't suit your taste? Should I order another one for you? The previous one and this one are from the same restaurant. No, from now on, order from the previous one. Jill glanced at the CEO but didn't dare speak. Noah glanced at her, his voice cold. Can't you do that? Jill struggled internally, closed her eyes for a moment, and confessed, The previous meals were all sent by Madam. Jill nervously continued, For the past few years, your lunch has always been sent by Madam, rain or shine, always on time. Because she was afraid you wouldn't eat, Madam specifically instructed me not to let you know she sent the food, so I didn't tell you. I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. I shouldn't have taken it upon myself. Noah didn't say anything, just waved his hand, signaling her to leave. Noah looked at the boxed lunch in front of him. Memories of the beautifully arranged meals he used to have flooded his mind. The taste wasn't amazing, but it had a homely deliciousness. He opened his phone again and checked, but there was still no message. After a moment of silent contemplation, he put down his phone and went back to work. By the time he finished everything, it was already late. He looked at the time, thought for a moment, then grabbed his car keys and walked out. He went to the parking lot, got his car, and drove back to the villa. The house had been empty for 2 days now. The servants and a few maids were diligently taking care of the villa. They were happy to see Noah return. Sir, you're back. I'll have someone prepare dinner for you in the kitchen. Noah took off his coat and handed it to one of the maids, then asked the servant, Is Madam at home? The servant shook her head worriedly, saying, Madam left in her car yesterday morning and hasn't returned yet. Noah said calmly, Have them prepare dinner. All right. Noah went upstairs and returned to their room. He walked around and realized it was much emptier now. All her belongings were gone. Her clothes, wardrobe, bags, shoes, all disappeared. Even the skincare and makeup products on the dressing table were swept away, and the woman who had waited for him countless nights over the past 5 years was also gone. Mia had completely left him. Noah looked at the empty bedroom, an indescribable feeling filling his heart. He sat down on the sofa, his gaze falling on the wedding ring gleaming in the light. This ring used to match his. He picked up the ring, and in his deep, unfathomable eyes, waves gently swept by. He suddenly felt a tightness in his chest. This emotion was too strange. Noah clenched the ring in his hand, feeling a deep sense of confusion. Could it be? Is she serious about divorcing him? The next day, Noah returned to the company on time. The morning meeting was still in progress when Sophie approached him. At 11:30, when the meeting ended, Noah returned to his office and saw Sophie, who had come unannounced. He was slightly surprised and asked, "Why are you here?" Sophie put down the coffee she was holding and walked up to him. "I couldn't arrange a meal with a busy person yesterday, so I had to come in person today." Noah sat back in his chair, looking at the pile of documents on his desk, and helplessly said, "I might not be able to do it so soon." Sophie empathetically replied, "It's okay, I'll wait for you to finish." All right. Time passed slowly, and without realizing it, an hour had gone by. Noah finally managed to handle some urgent files and was about to take Sophie out for lunch when his phone rang. Glancing at the caller ID, it was an unfamiliar number. He hesitated for a moment but decided to answer it. This was his private phone number, known to very few. The voice on the other end was cold. "Noah, this is Eva. Come to the police station now." Noah asked calmly, "What's the matter?" Besides Mia, he had no other connection with Eva. Eva's voice was as cold as ice. "Mia's body is going to be cremated, and the cremation process requires your signature." Noah narrowed his eyes and asked, "What are you talking about? A body? Cremation?" Eva repeated coldly, "I said Mia's body is going to be cremated, and it requires your signature." Noah didn't believe her and said in a low voice, "Is this some kind of joke?" Eva replied coldly, "Whether it's a joke or not, you'll find out when you come." After saying that, Eva hung up the phone. A sardonic smile appeared on Noah's lips. After hiding for 2 days, she finally dared to show up. Sophie approached Noah and asked softly, "Noah, whose call was that?" Noah snapped out of his thoughts and apologized. "I'm sorry, Sophie. I have some last-minute matters to attend to, and I won't be able to have lunch with you." Sophie's expression froze for a moment, but she quickly put on an understanding smile and said, "It's all right. Work is important. We can have lunch together another time." "Yes, sounds good." He went to the parking lot, got his car, and drove towards the police station. Arriving at the police station, he expected to see Mia with a triumphant look on her face. He had always believed this was just a game played by Mia and Eva to keep him by her side. But there was none. Arriving at the police station, he only saw Eva standing among a few police officers, looking grief-stricken. He furrowed his brow and walked toward her. Eva glanced at him indifferently and said to the officers beside her, "He's Mia's husband. He can sign." Eva's eyes were red, as if she had just been crying, and her voice was hoarse. Impatiently, Noah asked, "What are you all doing?" One of the officers patted Noah's shoulder and comforted him. "Our condolences." Noah's pupils slightly contracted, not fully understanding the meaning behind the words. "Let me take you to see the body first to confirm." He followed the officer. They arrived at a room with a bed, where a person lay completely covered in white cloth from head to toe. The body had been there for 2 days and 2 nights. With the current hot weather, the injured areas had started to decompose, and livor mortis had set in. "It won't be long before it starts to smell, so we recommend cremation as soon as possible." "A body?" Noah said. "I don't quite understand what you're talking about." The officer explained softly, "Your wife had a car accident 2 days ago and died on the spot." Noah was stunned by this absurd news. Feeling lost, he subconsciously clenched the hand hanging by his side. "How is this possible?" He didn't believe the person lying on the bed was Mia. Step by step, he walked to the edge of the bed, his fingertips touching the white cloth. Just as he was about to uncover it, an unfathomable fear surged within him. He hesitated for a moment before slowly lifting the white cloth. Noah stared blankly at the woman in front of him, someone so familiar she was practically etched into his bones. He didn't come back to his senses for a long time, just silently gazing at her, speechless. Noah recalled what was said before. "Are you saying she committed suicide?" Ava coldly smirked. "There weren't that many accidents. She was just targeted by your indifference, her body by a terminal illness, and she couldn't survive anymore. Mia gave her heart and soul to you, never doing anything to hurt you. You thought she was restricting your freedom, but she knew nothing about it. Yet she had to bear all your hatred and anger because of it." Noah stood there in a daze. His gaze lowered. He glanced at the confirmation document in front of him, his heart slightly constricted. He slowly signed his name on the document. Noah watched as the body was pushed into the crematorium, gradually being engulfed and consumed by the fierce flames. After the cremation, the staff packed the ashes and brought them out. Ava instinctively reached out to take them, but Noah intercepted her halfway. "She is my wife, and I will take care of her affairs." "No need." Ava stood in front of him, trying to snatch it away, but Noah held the urn tightly and moved aside. "She is my wife, and I will handle her affairs," Noah emphasized. Noah returned to the villa with the urn of ashes. Holding the urn, he entered the room. Noah, who hadn't slept all night, had stubble on his chin and looked slightly tired. After a moment of silence, he picked up the urn and stood up, opening the door to leave. As he was going downstairs, Noah unexpectedly missed a step and fell. Instinctively, he held the urn tightly in his arms, fearing any impact on it. Carefully, Noah placed the urn on the table in the middle of the living room and personally checked all the items needed for the funeral. Mia's burial was scheduled for the next morning, and there were still many things to prepare before the burial. Eva arrived early in the morning. Not long after, Sophie and other friends arrived one after another. Noah's gaze remained fixed on the urn on the table, silent and calm. Sophie glanced at the table, pursed her lips, and suddenly said, "Perhaps this is the best outcome. She'll no longer be saddled with a love she couldn't have, and Noah, you and I will no longer be hindered." Ava's eyes filled with mocking glances as she coldly stared at Sophie, her voice unusually cold. "The original wife hasn't even been buried yet, and the mistress dares to come here and celebrate the future. That's enough." Just as Sophie was about to retort loudly, Noah suddenly interrupted in a deep voice. His face showed no emotion, as he calmly said to Sophie, "You should go back first." Sophie took a step forward to explain. "Noah, I didn't mean anything else. I just thought this would be a relief for the three of us. I know you feel guilty, but you can't blame yourself for her death." Noah looked up at Sophie, his voice much darker than before. "Leave immediately." Sophie reached out to grab his arm, but he sidestepped her. Ava and Noah took care of all the funeral preparations together. Noah looked at the meal the servant had placed on the table and suddenly remembered the familiar taste of home-cooked dishes that had unknowingly invaded all his taste buds over the past 5 years. His gaze returned to the wedding photo, with her smiling face. "Noah, after we got married, you can't do anything that would hurt me. Hugging, kissing, those things should only be done with me. Understand?" After they got married, on his first birthday, she had personally knitted a light gray scarf for him. On his second birthday, she traveled to his hometown to learn the local specialty snacks and made them for him. On his third birthday, exactly at midnight, she made a bowl of longevity noodles and brought it to him. On his fourth birthday, suddenly, he couldn't find any memories related to her on his fourth birthday. Noah furrowed his brow, trying hard to remember. Yes, on his fourth birthday, he didn't spend it with her. That day, Sophie called him crying, and in a moment of impulse, he drove to another city to see her. He stood up and walked to the closet, pulling out the hand-knitted scarf she had given him from the corner. As he touched the scarf in his hand, he couldn't help but feel a hint of sadness deep within his heart. On the day of the funeral, a light drizzle fell from the sky. Ava arrived early and stood silently in front of the tombstone, holding a black umbrella. After many people finished paying their respects at the grave, they left. In the end, only Noah and Eva remained in front of the cemetery. Noah's gaze was too deep, and others couldn't discern any trace of emotion from his eyes. When did she develop cancer? Eva took a step forward, bending down to gently wipe the rainwater off the photo with her sleeve. A week ago, we had plans to have dinner together. She suddenly had severe abdominal pain and passed out. I took her to the hospital, and the diagnosis report confirming her suicide was obtained the day before. She called me and said some strange things, and when I asked her what happened, she brushed it off. Noah compared to the pain from her terminal illness, what made her most desperate was that you didn't love her. Noah didn't know how he returned to the villa. He ignored everything and walked straight upstairs, returning to his room. There were no longer any belongings of Mia in the room. Noah lay on the bed, and it seemed like something was hidden under her pillow. A notebook. Flipping open the notebook, it contained many things related to him. Noah's fingertips trembled slightly as he stared at each page, flipping through them. When he reached the last page, his eyes turned sour. The last page was what she wrote before the incident. I want to spend a birthday with Noah. Birthday? That day, he seemed to have returned home after midnight. His heart throbbed with hidden pain as he carefully recalled what happened that day. And she said she received the diagnosis report on her birthday, and that night she gave him a divorce agreement. She said, "If I die in the next life, I won't love you again." And he said, "Let's talk about it when you're dead." The notebook in his hand suddenly fell onto the mattress, and all the strength seemed to drain from Noah's body. After the funeral, Noah changed. He continued to go to work on time, seemingly normal, but his secretary, Jill, noticed something was off. He used to be punctual, but rarely left on time. But now, as soon as it was time to leave, he'd abandon everything and go home. At lunchtime, the CEO actually brought his own meal, and the lunchbox was exactly the same as the one the CEO's wife used to bring to the company. Several times, he'd suddenly ask if his wife had called. At first, she thought the CEO was used to his wife's daily check-ins, but later she realized it wasn't the case. Like now, with his head down, Noah, immersed in his work, asked casually during the brief moment Jill brought in the coffee. Did my wife call today? Jill's hand holding the coffee trembled, and she replied, no. Noah lowered his gaze, murmuring to himself, still angry. Jill looked at the man who had already returned to his work, shocked. She always felt something was off with the CEO. He goes to work and comes home as usual every day. When he comes back, someone delivers dinner to his room, and the dinner always has to be for 2 people. At night, he often goes to the wine cabinet and brings a bottle of good wine upstairs. There are also 2 wine glasses prepared. On this night, Noah, as usual, took a bottle of red wine upstairs, but suddenly paused at the stairs. Noah glanced to the side, a faint smile on his lips. Prepare some appetizers for the lady. Yes. The servant's attention was on the appetizers behind, and it took her a while to realize the problem. The servant was taken aback. Prepare for the lady, sir. Noah's arm still wrapped around his gaze, not shifting from his side. He softly responded. Noah turned his head to look at the servant, the doting expression still on his face. The lady likes to have some appetizers with her drink. Go prepare some. The servant rubbed her eyes, her shock deepening on her face. Sir, who are you holding? Noah slightly furrowed his brow, a hint of displeasure in his eyes. Can't you see Mia? Such a big person, right here? After saying that, he looked back to his side, fell silent for a moment, and began talking to himself. I know, I don't blame her. It's just that you're standing right here, and she didn't even see you. Apart from Noah's occasional confusing actions, life seemed unchanged. He often gave off the feeling that Mia was still alive. He treated this imaginary wife well. He became more accommodating to the lady. The meals were prepared in the kitchen to her preferences, and the sofa in the living room was changed to her favorite color. Every move and gesture showed Mr. S's longing for his wife. Sophie somehow learned about Noah's current situation and broke into the villa to find him. Noah saw Sophie, said nothing, and just placed the dessert he was holding aside. But there was no one sitting on that side of the sofa. She looked at him incredulously. Mia is already dead. How long are you going to deceive yourself? She tightly grabbed his arm with both hands. Noah coldly pulled her hands away. You should go back. Don't come here again. Mia didn't like other women coming to the house. Sophie stood up. Can't you wake up? Mia has been dead for a long time. She can't see your guilt and regret. Noah's expression remained emotionless. He reached out and touched something nearby, as if comforting something, and faced Sophie. You should go back. Sophie stared at him blankly. What do you mean? Oh, I love Mia. What about me? What am I to you? Sophie's eyes widened. You bastard! After Sophie left, Noah looked back at the sofa, but the person with the gentle smile had already disappeared. He searched everywhere but couldn't find a trace of her. Noah murmured, Are you angry? Suddenly, his stomach contracted, and he rushed into the bathroom, feeling sick. A maid saw him and turned around, taking out her phone to make a call. Sophie, you should come back. Mister is continuously vomiting. The focused maid didn't notice the man walking in behind her. Until the cold air seeped into her body and mind, the maid finally realized. Sir? Noah's icy gaze fixed on her without saying a word. The maid was terrified, sweating coldly, and stammered, I'm sorry, sir, I didn't mean to. It was Sophie. She asked me to report everything about you and Madame in the villa. On Madame's birthday, she asked me to secretly put some photos in Madame's room. I refused, but she later sent them to Madame's phone. Noah's gaze narrowed. What photos? The trembling maid said. Intimate photos of her with you and a pregnancy test report. Noah's gaze turned even colder. He had Jill take back the villa he had provided for Sophie and canceled all the cards he had opened for her. Overnight, Sophie lost everything. She searched everywhere like a headless fly. The company, the villa, even the restaurants and spots he frequented, but couldn't find him. She was filled with rage, like a madwoman with nowhere to vent. Until one day, she ran into that maid on the street and finally understood. Noah still lived a monotonous and dull life between the company and the villa. Every day when he came home, someone prepared 2 dinners to be delivered to his room. Occasionally, he'd still go downstairs and bring a bottle of red wine back to his room, with 2 glasses, as always. 1 year later, it was Mia's death anniversary. Noah brought a handful of her favorite baby's breath to visit her. He finally realized she was no longer there. Noah quietly stayed there all day, not saying anything, until nightfall when he finally got up to leave. On his way back, it started pouring rain. He saw a truck coming toward him uncontrollably from the adjacent lane. His subconscious wanted to turn the steering wheel, but in that split second, he remembered the lifeless woman he saw at the police station last year. He let go of the steering wheel. It's fine. Bang! A deafening sound filled the air, and Noah plunged into darkness. Faint and intermittent voices reached his ears, some familiar yet somewhat unfamiliar. His head throbbed, and Noah furrowed his brow, slowly opening his eyes. Hey, Noah, don't sleep. Get up quickly. We can't be late for Professor Goodwill's class. Noah hesitated for a moment, unable to understand the current situation. Bunk beds, jerseys hanging in the wardrobe. Is this a university dormitory? Noah, what are you staring at? Hurry up and get ready, someone called out. Eric, the guy who just woke Noah up, was frantically changing clothes. Are you still half asleep? At that moment, another guy walked in from the balcony. Stop dawdling, you two. Hurry up and brush your teeth and wash your face. He was another roommate in Noah's college dorm. Noah looked at the 2 of them, his mind momentarily blank. Noah, did you sleep so much that you've gone stupid? They pushed Noah to wash up and change clothes, then headed to the classroom. Noah understood. A car accident had brought him back to his senior year in college, 5 years ago. He knew this was a chance given to him by fate. Suddenly, he asked, Do you guys know which class Mia is in? Eric replied, She's in the Chinese department, the department's beauty. She's a sophomore, and many guys are chasing after her. After class? Where are you going? Didn't we agree to play basketball after school? I'm going alone. Eric said that Mia had been preparing for the New Year's Eve party performance and should be practicing in the music room. When Noah found Mia in the music room, she was sitting in front of the piano wearing a white dress. Her delicate fingers danced on the keys, and the evening sun gently caressed her hair as it streamed through the window, casting a warm golden light. She had a gentle smile on her face. It had been a while since he'd seen her smile so purely and beautifully. His heart skipped a beat. But Mia wasn't alone in the music room. Girls were nodding their heads and tapping their feet to the melody, watching Mia. Noah stared at Mia for a while. Mia, your piano playing has improved so much. It almost brought me to tears. Mia blushed and smiled shyly. Don't exaggerate. Don't give me false praise. Noah stood at the doorway the entire time, neither leaving nor entering. He wanted to go in, but he was afraid it was all an illusion, afraid the illusion would shatter, and the girl who moved, laughed, and played the piano would disappear along with it. Such illusions, he saw them almost every day since her death a year ago, only to lose them every day. All right, the New Year's Eve party is in a few days. If I don't practice the piano properly, I'll embarrass myself in front of the whole school. Ava shook her head. You're overthinking. It's not like anyone else would embarrass themselves. You're the beauty of our department, not to mention your excellent piano skills. Just by standing on stage, you can capture the entire audience's attention, especially the guys. Noah suddenly spoke up. Mia? The sudden voice made the music room quiet down. Noah walked up to her, his deep gaze fixed on her. I need to talk to you. Can you come out with me? Ava's eyes lit up. Go ahead. I'll tidy up here for you. Mia was a bit confused. She had almost no interaction with Noah, but she knew who he was. She hesitated for a moment, but by then, Ava had already pushed her out of the door impatiently. Mia glanced at Ava and reluctantly agreed. Okay. Quietly, Mia followed behind Noah as they walked outside. Noah took Mia to the lakeside. It was dinner time, and there weren't many people around the lake. The evening glow reflected on the lake's surface, and a gentle breeze blew, causing ripples on the water, as if the evening glow was ebbing and flowing. Mia brushed the strands of hair tousled by the breeze behind her ear and asked softly, What do you need from me? Noah looked at her, his deep eyes hiding waves of emotions. Before he could answer, Mia looked up and met his intense gaze. Just as she was about to ask something else, she suddenly felt a tightness around her waist. Before she could react, she found herself falling into a warm yet unfamiliar embrace. Noah held her tightly, not saying a word, just embracing her silently. Mia's heart raced, and she was about to push him away, but then she remembered his eyes, which seemed to hold countless emotions. Her hand froze midair. Her whole body stiffened. What's wrong with you? Just let me hold you for a while, just for a moment. It was her warmth, her breath. He had finally found her. After holding her for a while, he let go of her. Without waiting for her to question, he spoke. Are you hungry? Let's go eat. Mia wanted to ask him what had happened, but she was afraid of accidentally touching upon something that saddened him, so she didn't dare say anything. She was afraid of accidentally touching upon something that saddened him, so she didn't dare say anything. Noah took her hand and walked toward the school gate. What do you like to eat? This time, Mia didn't go along with him. She gently pulled her hand back. With her palm empty, Noah turned to look at her. Noah acted as if nothing had happened and asked again, What do you feel like eating? Well, Mia was about to say anything was fine, but when she met his gaze, she involuntarily swallowed the words about to come out of her mouth. For some reason, she found it difficult to refuse what he said. She pursed her lips and said softly, I feel like having something spicy. There's a Hunan restaurant outside the campus. Shall we go there? Spicy? Yes, can you handle spicy food? Let's go. There were many students coming and going on campus, and occasionally a few pairs of eyes glanced at them. Mia occasionally met a few ambiguous gazes and felt discomfort welling up in her heart, instinctively moving a bit further away from him. Noah noticed her action and frowned for a moment, but didn't say anything. The two went to a Hunan restaurant not far from the school. It was dinner time and the place was crowded. When they arrived, there were no available tables, but luckily, a customer in a small private room had just finished their meal and was settling the bill. As soon as the staff finished cleaning the room, they went in. Noah opened the menu and placed it in front of Mia. What would you like to eat? Mia glanced at him, without refusing, and picked up the menu to browse. After ordering 2 of her favorite dishes, she asked Noah, Do you have any preferences? Although it was a Hunan restaurant, they also had some non-spicy dishes to cater to local tastes. Do you want to take a look? No need, Noah smirked. I like everything. Mia furrowed her brows. Not everything. Noah smiled at her, reaching out to ruffle her hair. What you ordered is what I want to eat. Mia turned her head slightly, her face blushing, her heart beating a little faster. She randomly pointed to two more dishes. When the dishes arrived, Noah looked at the table, full of red-colored food, and froze. So, she likes spicy food this much. He rarely ate with her, often coming back late to avoid having meals together. But even so, she still waited for him every day. Mia looked at him, thinking the dishes might not suit his taste. Don't you like these? No. Noah picked up a piece of meat and put it into her bowl. I really like them. Throughout the meal, Noah occasionally served her dishes. Mia secretly observed his expression, but couldn't see any change as he ate the spicy dishes on the table. Wasn't he supposed to dislike spicy food? Mia was a bit puzzled, but didn't say anything. After finishing the meal, it was already dark outside. The two walked back to the school. The gentle evening breeze brushed past, and Mia closed her eyes, enjoying the coolness of the summer. Noah looked at her delicate and fair face, feeling a quick surge of emotions in his heart. He reached out his hand, wanting to touch her face, but Mia happened to open her eyes and their gazes met. Mia stepped back silently, her clear eyes fixed on him. Shall we take a walk to the playground? He suggested. Mia shook her head. No, I need to go back. I still have unfinished homework. No, I need to go back. I still have unfinished homework. Okay, Noah lowered his gaze, softly saying, I'll walk you back. Mia watched his dimly lit figure under the streetlight and suddenly felt a tinge of melancholy in her heart. Noah walked her back to the dormitory building. Mia glanced at the dormitory building and softly said, I've arrived. Thank you for treating me to dinner. You don't have to thank me. Never, Noah said calmly. Mia paused for a moment, pursing her lips. Then I'll go back first. Just as she turned around, Noah's deep and serious voice suddenly sounded. Do you still love me? Mia was taken aback by his words. She liked him, but she had never told anyone about it before. She turned to look at him, but then thought of something and said, If you have a fight with your girlfriend, communicate well with her. Hugging other girls and having meals with them will only make the conflicts between the two of you worse. After saying this, Mia walked into the girls' dormitory building without looking back. Noah was stunned for a moment before reacting to her words. Oh no, I had forgotten about this. At this time, I was supposed to be unfamiliar with Mia and in a relationship with Sophie. Noah rubbed his forehead and closed his eyes, a hint of anxiety flashing in his eyes. There were some things he couldn't wait for. Sophie came from an average background but was diligent in her studies. Most of the time, she could be found either in the classroom or in the library. According to her habits from her past life, she should still be studying in the library at this time. Noah made his way to the library and went straight up to the 5th floor. In their past life, they often went to the library together, usually occupying the two seats in the far corner of the left side of the 5th floor. It was a secluded corner where few people went, providing enough quietness. Arriving on the 5th floor, Noah walked all the way to the end on the left side when he suddenly stopped at the corner. On that spot, it wasn't just Sophie alone, there was also another guy. At that moment, the guy was bending down and kissing Sophie. Perhaps sensing Noah's imposing presence, Sophie turned her head and looked over, her face instantly filled with panic. Noah, what are you doing here? Noah said coldly. I have something to tell you. The guy glanced at Noah disdainfully, chuckled indifferently, and said, Sophie, I'll leave first. See you tomorrow. Sophie bit her lip and looked at Noah with a timid gaze, not saying anything. After the guy left, Noah took Sophie out of the library and found a suitable place to talk. Noah, let me explain. I didn't know. Let's break up. Before Sophie could finish explaining, Noah spoke indifferently. In my previous life, I always thought I owed Sophie because of Mia, but now it all seems like a joke. What? What are you saying? Sophie, it's not like that. Noah's face remained calm, despite the turmoil in his heart. I can't give you what you want. No need to explain. Noah took 2 steps back, his expression indifferent. I can't give you what you want. Sophie paused for a moment, suddenly becoming calm. Noah didn't look at her again and turned to leave. As a senior, they had fewer classes. Today, neither Noah nor Mia had any classes, so after leaving the dormitory, he went straight to the cafeteria and bought two breakfasts. Then he arrived at the entrance of Mia's dormitory building. Exactly at 8 o'clock, Mia, Eva, and another roommate came downstairs together. The three of them chatted and laughed as they walked out of the dormitory building. When Mia's gaze unintentionally met Noah, who was leaning against the wall, she paused for a moment. Her footsteps couldn't help but stop. Noah walked slowly towards her and handed her the breakfast, saying, "Eat breakfast before going to class." Mia looked around at her two roommates, who were watching the scene unfold with amusement. Her face couldn't help but show a bit of embarrassment as she asked, "What are you doing here?" Noah raised the breakfast in his hand and whispered, "Waiting for you." The two roommates shared a knowing smile and quickly pulled Mia's hand, saying, "We'll go save seats. You two can chat for a while." "Okay." After the roommates left, the two of them walked to the side. Mia looked at the breakfast in his hand and asked softly, "Have you not made up with your girlfriend yet?" Noah lowered his gaze and replied, "We've already broken up." "Break up?" Mia was surprised. "Why? There's no specific reason, we're just not compatible." Afraid she'd overthink it, Noah handed her the breakfast and said gently, "Take the breakfast and go to class. Don't be late. I'll wait for you after class. I'll come pick you up." After saying this, he turned and walked away. He knew doing these things would confuse her, but he couldn't help seeking her out. He was afraid of scaring her, and even more afraid she'd think he was fickle. So he could only slowly seep into her life, bit by bit, like water flowing. At noon, around 12 o'clock, most students had left the classroom. Mia was tidying up her things. Ava rested her chin on the desk and looked at Mia, asking, "What should we have for lunch?" Mia smiled and replied, "Let's go to the cafeteria." After packing up her books, they walked out of the classroom and immediately spotted Noah waiting at the entrance. Ava sighed, "When did this guy from our department become so punctual?" Ignoring the others, Noah just looked at Mia and said softly, "Where do you want to eat? Let's go to the cafeteria on the third floor." Noah smiled, turned to the side, and gestured to Mia, "Let's go." It was lunchtime and the cafeteria was bustling with people. Noah and his group found a long table, put down their things to reserve seats, and just as Mia was about to join them to get their food together, Noah gently pressed her shoulder and motioned for her to sit down. "You wait here. I'll get the food for you." Mia was a bit stunned for a moment, then shook her head. "No need, I can go by myself." Ava returned after getting her food and sat on Mia's left side. Noah naturally took a seat on her right side and handed her the chopsticks, saying, "Try it." After finishing their meal, Noah asked Mia, "I want to learn piano. Can you teach me?" Burp. Mia was about to speak, but involuntarily let out a burp. She lowered her head in embarrassment and softly replied, "Maybe not. I've been busy lately." "It's okay. I'm not in a hurry." Noah wasn't bothered by her avoidance. This was what he should endure. He had patience and could wait for her favor in this lifetime. After dropping Mia off at her dorm, they went their separate ways. Noah was busy seizing business opportunities and entering the market all day long. But no matter how busy he always made time to pick up Mia from the music room and accompany her back to the dormitory at night. That night, Noah dropped Mia off at the entrance of the dormitory and coincidentally ran into her coming downstairs to pick up takeout. Mia, with a lollipop in her mouth and holding fried chicken, walked over to Mia with a spring in her step. "I just bought fried chicken. Let's eat it together when we get back." Mia looked at the bag in her hand and smiled, nodding. Then she said, "Noah, we'll go up first. You should go back early." Noah's gaze inadvertently swept over the takeout in Eva's hand, and he whispered, "Don't eat too much fried food tonight. I noticed your throat doesn't seem to be feeling well today." Cough, cough. Mia subconsciously cleared her throat. "Okay, I got it. I'm leaving. See you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow." The two stood downstairs, watching him leave until his figure disappeared around the corner of the path. Eva took out the lollipop from her mouth and clicked her tongue. "It seems like Smith, the hottest guy in our department, has completely fallen for you." Mia looked steadily in the direction he left, her gaze slightly dim. "Don't you find him a bit strange and look puzzled?" What's strange, besides the hottest guy and the prettiest girl making a good match, don't you think? Mia lowered her gaze, her voice softer. Is that so? Yeah, and by the way, why do you always wear this kind of little white dress? Sometimes you should change your style too. Nowadays, guys like the sexy look. Look at the ex-girlfriend of the hottest guy. She dressed so seductively. Mia kept her eyes down, not knowing what she was thinking. Mia smiled at her. I think it's good to be myself. I don't want to lose myself for someone else. The next day, the New Year's Eve party went on as scheduled. At the A University Sports Hall, almost all the students and teachers gathered to watch tonight's performances. Mia's performance was in the middle, and Noah had come early in the morning. He stayed by her side throughout, watching her slowly walk towards the stage, like a princess, playing a beautiful melody under the spotlight. Deafening applause filled the air, and he couldn't find space in his eyes for anything else. There was only her, filling his eyes and heart. The performance ended, and several guys managed to sneak backstage and rush to give flowers to Mia. Mia looked at the bouquets in front of her, feeling a little overwhelmed. Just as she didn't know how to extricate herself, she suddenly felt a tightness around her waist and was pulled into a warm embrace. Sorry, my girlfriend has something to do, so we're leaving first. With these words, Noah casually left, holding Mia and walking away from backstage. With Noah forcefully embracing her, Mia was led out of the sports hall. Inside, the noise continued, but outside, there was no one around. On the way back to the dormitory, Noah still didn't release his embrace around her waist. You can let go now. Mia gently pushed his arm. There's no one else here. Hearing her timid words, Noah's heart felt a sense of joy. He tightened his hold around her waist, completely enveloping her in his embrace. Mia trembled in her heart. At such a close distance, she could even hear his firm and steady heartbeat. He gently touched the top of her head, wanting to stroke her like a well-behaved little cat. Walk with me properly. Blushing, Mia didn't dare to meet his eyes and didn't know where to put her hands. She felt stiff and lost. Seeing her blushing face and speechless state, Noah found her incredibly adorable. He rubbed her head and relaxed his grip on her waist. He continued to walk with her like this, holding her tightly until they were near the entrance of the girls' dormitory. Only then did he let go. As they stood in front of the dormitory building, Mia was about to bid him farewell when Noah softly called out to her, Mia, be with me. Be my girlfriend? Noah stared at her intently, waiting silently for her answer. Mia lowered her gaze and remained silent for a moment. Then she slowly raised her eyes to meet his gaze. I'm sorry. His smile froze. After uttering those 3 words, she turned and quickly ran into the dormitory building. She loved him, but she couldn't dare to love any more. A long time ago, she had a dream. In that dream, she married him. She thought she could hold his hand and be happy together until old age, but after marriage, every night was filled with loneliness. He was forced to marry her because of his father's schemes. After getting married, she found out he hated her. However, she couldn't bear to divorce him because of it. And so, one held love while the other held hate, tormenting each other day and night, never ending. For every birthday he had, she knitted scarves, made longevity noodles, and even learned to make his favorite childhood snacks from his hometown. She did everything she could. But what was the result? Sophie came back, and he completely discarded her. Some say there's no absolute despair in the world, but she felt differently. She fell ill with a terminal disease. When she saw the diagnosis report, the world suddenly became quiet, as if she was the only one left, all alone. On her birthday, she prepared the divorce agreement. After this birthday, she would set him free completely. She bought a cake, declined Eva's invitation, and quietly waited in her room for him to come back from work. That day, she did nothing but sit on the sofa in her room, staring blankly at the entrance. How agonizing was the wait. It was probably like someone taking a small knife and slowly cutting pieces of flesh from your body, causing pain you couldn't alleviate. She didn't know how long had passed when he finally returned. She walked up to him, gently kissed him before he could react, and said a sentence that caused her immense pain, both in dreams and reality. In the next life, I won't love you anymore. She didn't know why she had such dreams, The dreams were too real, and the excruciating pain felt just as real, to the point that whenever she thought about it, her heart would ache and forget to beat. She knew he existed, but she didn't dare seek him out because she was afraid of the pain. She never expected he'd come to her and confess his feelings. It was all contrary to her dreams, but in the end, she couldn't dare to love him anymore. Noah watched her figure as she walked away, and after a moment of disbelief, he quickly caught up to her and pulled her out of the gate. This shouldn't have been the outcome, even if I had changed the order of events on my own. In the past, at this moment, she should have liked me. He led her all the way to the lake, then gently held her shoulders and looked at her. It was then he noticed her eyes were filled with tears, on the verge of overflowing, making her incredibly pitiful. His heart instantly softened, and he cupped her face, whispering, "You like me, right?" His forehead pressed against hers. "Since you like me, why did you reject me? Tell me, Mia. Tell me the reason why you won't accept me." "Please stop asking." Mia lowered her eyes, her voice choked up. "I don't know either, I can't explain." "Mia, face your own heart, don't run away." He coaxed gently, his thumb lightly brushing over her lowered eyelashes. "Listen to me. Tell me the reason, otherwise I won't let you go." Noah patiently waited for her emotions to calm down, waiting for her to speak. She wiped away her tears and began to regain her composure. "Why did you break up with your girlfriend? We weren't compatible." "Why did you break up with your girlfriend?" "We weren't compatible?" Mia took a step back from his embrace, her voice hoarse. "How could you not be compatible? In the eyes of many, you two were the perfect couple. You excelled academically and were good-looking. Many classmates said you were a perfect match." Noah kept looking at her, unwilling to miss any hint of emotion on her face. Only the people involved know if it's a good match or not. What others say doesn't matter. Mia slowly raised her gaze, meeting his eyes. "Then why did you come to find me?" "I love you. We didn't even know each other before. No, I should say, you didn't know me at all." "That's just what you think." Noah suppressed the restlessness in his heart and whispered, "You're so outstanding. How could I not know you?" Mia froze. By the lake at night, a gentle breeze blew, occasionally brushing against Mia's forehead, causing her stray strands of hair to flutter. Almost instinctively, Noah reached out and smoothed her hair away from her ear. "Is it because you care about these things that you rejected me?" Mia tilted her head, looking at him but remained silent. Noah's deep gaze darkened. "Don't rush to reject me. Others don't matter. Just remember, the one I like now is you, only you." "Why did you start liking me?" Mia still couldn't understand why he suddenly developed feelings for her. Unable to resist, Noah playfully flicked her nose and chuckled. "Mia, it's easy to start liking you. You have a gentle personality, humble towards others, excellent academic performance, perfect appearance, and a family background that many envy." Noah suddenly felt like he had been blind in his past life. Such an amazing girl was right in front of him, and he hadn't cherished her or loved her properly. "But your closeness makes me feel uncomfortable," Mia suddenly murmured. Noah's gaze paused, puzzled. "Why?" "I don't know. That discomfort feels like someone choking me." Mia blinked and whispered softly, "I had a dream before." Mia slowly raised her eyes, meeting his gaze. "In the dream, we got married, and the marriage was a failure." Noah's heart skipped a beat. His eyes slightly narrowed. "You didn't marry me willingly. You didn't love me because I restricted your freedom. You liked Sophie, and I was just an obstacle between you two. You're not—" Noah's heart panicked slightly, but his face remained calm. "You're not an obstacle. I love you, Mia. I don't know why I had such a dream. It was too real, from marriage to divorce, like a complete tragedy. What's even scarier is that I often have this illusion, feeling like it was a real life I once experienced. I often have this illusion, feeling like it was a real life I once experienced." Noah was shaken to the core. He suddenly felt lost and could only hold her in his arms, explaining in a hoarse voice, "I'm sorry, it's my fault." Noah's eyes showed unprecedented pain. I shouldn't have made you sad. Mia forcefully broke free from his embrace, took a few steps back, and looked at him. Let's leave the past behind. I don't want to look back, nor do I want to delve into the origin of this dream. I just want to live a good life in the future. Noah swallowed hard, his voice hoarse. I can be there with you. No need. Mia softly refused. I will live my own life well, but you can't be a part of it. Noah gazed at her with deep sorrow, unable to speak. That's it then. Mia lowered her gaze, suppressing all her emotions. Let's pretend we've never met. After saying that, Mia took a few more steps back and turned to leave. I can't do it. Noah's voice of sorrow suddenly rang out, shaking Mia's heart. Mia, I can't do it. He walked towards her step by step, stopping behind her. Give me another chance, please, he pleaded almost desperately. Mia still didn't turn around to look at him, only closing her teary eyes. I'm sorry, if you really like me, stay away from me. There will never be an ending between us. I will never repeat the same mistakes in this lifetime. She would never repeat the same mistakes in this lifetime. Noah's heart trembled fiercely as he watched her resolute figure walking away, his eyes filled with endless sadness. Mia. Letting go, he truly couldn't do it. But he never expected she'd have memories from a past life. She had suffered in a lifetime, and he couldn't bear to let her go through that pain again with those memories. Even in this lifetime, he was willing to love her with his life. Today they talked about everything, and Mia returned to her normal life. But in her life, there was no longer any intrusion from Noah. Eva was puzzled. Where is Smith, the school heartthrob? Why does it feel like he's been missing lately? Mia shrugged. I don't know. Noah was the person she loved most in her dreams, but in this reality, he was just a passerby in her dreams. And there are many beautiful things waiting for us to explore in life. Don't waste your time searching for someone. Eva pouted and then hugged Mia's shoulder. All right, Missy, our future is still bright. The two girls laughed cheerfully, striding forward fearlessly. Noah stood under a tree, wearing a mask, watching them from afar, his gaze softening as he looked at Mia. Mia, be bold and move forward. In this lifetime, I will silently protect you, until eternity, until old age.